Hi guys, welcome back. I hope this video finds you well. We are going to talk about slope-intercept form today. Now in your notes there's a warm-up. I'm going to go ahead and skip it just to make this video a little bit shorter. Okay, but some vocab words that we're going to need to know. The y-intercept, that's where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so if I were to have a graph here, okay, and I have an orange line here, the y-intercept is right here where it's crossing the y-axis. So you can see this little point here. That is the y-intercept, and sometimes we shorten that to just y-int. Okay, and the x-intercept is where our line crosses the x-axis. So if we're looking, that would be right here. Okay, this is our x-intercept. Okay, and slope-intercept form is an equation called y equals mx plus b. Okay, and that should be memorized. Okay, we're going to say it a lot between all the things that we do, so it shouldn't be too hard, but we will need to know that, and we'll talk about what each of those pieces mean in just a little bit. Okay, but first let's look at a graph. So we have two different pieces of information here. We have Jim's distance from the curb and Sam's distance from the curb as we're driving, okay, or walking maybe, because it's in feet. So I'm going to do Jim in blue and Sam in red. Okay, so for the blue one, I'm just going to look at these two pieces of information because time is x. Okay, so we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do every other line. And then we're going from like 0 to about 28-ish. So I'm going to count by 4s. Okay, so 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. All right, that should get us pretty good. All right, so in blue, we're doing the first point in 0, 0. Okay. We have our second point 1, 4. And then 2, 8. 3, 12. 4, 16. And 5, 20. And 6, 24. And then I'm going to draw a line through all those points. Okay, so that's Jim. So Jim is blue. Sam started out at 4 feet away from the curb, so his line starts here. Okay, and then he went 1, 8. So he's basically going to be just right above Jim here all the way through. Okay, so this is Sam. So go ahead, take a second and plot those points if you haven't already. Okay, this guy was supposed to be on the line there. Okay. If you need to, feel free to pause the video. So we're going to compare and contrast lines. So what's the difference between Jim and Sam's line? Okay, Sam's line is always higher than Jim's, and the reason for that is because Sam started higher, right? He started at the point 0, 4, whereas Jim started at 0, 0, right? Okay. But they do have the same what? Based on what we talked about yesterday, they have the same slope, right? Because we're going up and over the same rate for both of the lines. So they're parallel, okay? That'll come into play later on in this chapter. Okay. All right, so let's talk about how we can write equations of those lines, okay? So we have this equation y equals mx, okay, and that's where the y-intercept is 0, and we have y equals mx plus b. We don't really use y equals mx a ton, we just say b is 0. So this is the one that you really need to know, is y equals mx plus b, okay? So the b in the equation stands for the y-intercept, okay? Where does my line cross the y-axis? The m, as we know, stands for slope. That is the same here as it is in the slope formula. And the x and y stand for any point on the line. Okay. So if we were looking at this, if we were looking at Jim's, you know, the xy point, we have 1, 4, we have 2, 8, we have 3, 12, right? So all of those x and y values are represented. So typically when we write an equation, we leave the x and y just as x and y. They're not numbers because we want to be able to plug in any x and get a y out, okay? So just like some of those equations we've been working with in chapter 3, but this time we're going to have 2 variables, okay? Left, I should say, because there's technically 4 variables to start with. All right, so let's practice this, okay? So I kind of wrote down the steps, so we'll talk through them. I'm going to give you the graph, okay? I'm going to say, write the equation of it. So the first thing you're going to do is find the slope, and then you're going to find the y-intercept, and then you're going to plug it into the equation. So let's talk through it. So step one, let's find the slope. Okay. Again, slope is rise over run, right? Or you could use y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2, but since we're given a graph, rise over run is going to be faster. So I'm going to go between these 2 points. Again, you just pick any two. My rise is 2, and my run is 1. So my slope is just 2. Okay. My y-intercept, which is b, okay, so that's my y-intercept. I just look to see where my line crosses the y-axis. Well, it's crossing at 0, so my y-intercept is just 0. So my third step is I'm going to take y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to plug it into the equation. So I'm going to get y equals 2x plus 0. And since it's plus 0, we can really just write it as y equals 2x. Okay? Now, some of you might get to the point where you don't have to write this part down. Okay, you can just, you're like, oh, y equals mx plus b, I found m to be 2 and y-intercept to be 0, b to be 0. Okay? All right, let's try another one. So go ahead and pause this video if you need to write the equation, to write the slope, the line on the graph. Ooh, I can't speak today, I'm sorry guys. So again, step one, whoops, let's actually write that instead of a laser pointer, is to find my slope. And again, I'm just going to pick 2 random points, it doesn't matter which ones. So I'm rising 1 and going over 1, 2, 3. So my slope is 1/3. Next, I need to identify my y-intercept. Well, that's where it crosses the y-axis, and actually that's right here. And that's at the point 1, 2. Okay. And it's actually the point 0, 2, but I went up 2. Okay. I only need the y-coordinate of the y-intercept, okay, because the x-coordinate is always 0 with the y-intercept. Now I'm going to write my equation, y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to plug in m and b. So I'm going to have y equals 1/3 x plus 2. So this equation right here represents this orange line that we wrote. Okay, why don't you go ahead and give this one a try for me. I'm going to go ahead and identify the slope. Okay. And my slope is up 1, 2, 3, 4. But I went over to the left one, so remember that's a -1. Now I can just reduce that as -4. Okay. And my b is going to be where I cross the y-axis. Now this is a negative number, so this is 1, 2, 3, -3. Okay. And that's okay, we can have negative y-intercepts and we can have negative slopes. So I have y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to have y equals -4x plus -3. We could also write this as y equals -4x minus 3. Both would be accepted. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and just skip the exit slope for now, okay? I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.